meeting of the HABD Special Board of Commissioners meeting is now called to order. We'll start with a moment of silence. All right, roll call. Vice Chairman Todd.
Present.
Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Lewis.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Adoption of the agenda.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda as printed. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted for our special board meeting. Before we have our presentation, I think we have the Deputy Police Chief that's going to present. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, before we do that, I have a few comments that I want to make before presenting, before the Deputy Police Chief comes forward. First off, thank you guys for coming. I know this is a late notice special call board meeting. This is a matter that we need to discuss concerning protective services for our sites, for our residents. And this is something I know we've been working on for quite some time. There's been some changes. I know we've had the Sheriff's Department that has been patrolling our communities for the last few months. I know that the City of Birmingham has had this contract for some time. And so the reason for this meeting is to discuss the protective services contract for the City of Birmingham to patrol our sites. This meeting was called prior to the unfortunate events that happened on last night to the young girl. I think her name is Journey, the young girl that was shot in Marksville's community. And let me say this. This morning I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm angry. I just got a lot of emotions going on inside of me right now, so I'm gonna try to contain myself. But we've got to do better. We've got to do better. That's all of us. I think as a board, we have a fiduciary responsibility. We have a right to make sure that our residents are safe. We ought to provide safe, sanitary, and decent housing. I understand that things happen at our sites that sometimes we don't have any control over. Sometimes there are not our residents, but like I aforementioned, we have a duty to make sure that our residents are safe. And right now, I just don't think that that's happening. This is my editorial opinion. I'm not speaking for anyone else. But I just feel like we're not doing a good enough job of providing safety for our residents. And so I don't care how long it takes today. I don't care how long we have to meet. I would like the results of this meeting for us to come together with an agreement with the City of Birmingham so we can make sure that our residents are safe. I understand that we have that there are procedures and processes that have to go forward and have to take place, but we've got to get past some of this red tape and move forward with an agreement and get on with the business of making sure that our residents are safe. And so as a board, I'm coming to you. I'm telling you, let's see what we can get worked out today. I don't care how long it takes. I'm willing to sit here all day until we can figure it out. Whatever the holdup is, whatever the objections are, I would like to see if we can get this thing done in principle today. We can't wait. We can't wait. And so, with that being said, we're going to allow the Deputy Police Chief come forward and make his presentation. But before you do that, I have one other thought, and I'm gonna let Vice Chairman speak. Like I said, I'm angry and I'm upset, but I want to be the change that I want to see. And so I don't care whose toes I step on. At this point, it's not about you. It's about these residents. So I'm gonna be out in these communities. I'm going to be out knocking on doors. I'm going to be doing whatever I can do to make sure that our residents are safe. And so Whoever likes it, fine. If you don't, fine. That's fine with me. But I'm going to be out here in these communities. I'm going to be engaged with our residents, and I'm going to be the change that I want to see. So if you see me out there, just know I'm out here trying to do the work, and I want to make sure that I can, I'm talking, but I want to make sure that I back it up with some action. And so with that being said, I'm going to yield my time to Vice Chairman Todd.
Mr. Chairman, I know that a couple of months ago, we sit down as a board and we agreed totally that we needed to make some changes in the community. And that's why we sat here and we came up with a plan to do the joint effort with the Sheriff Department as well as the Birmingham Police Department. And to my knowledge, I was thinking that some of those things was already put in place, that we had the high cops personnel that was patrolling and the Sheriff Department that was patrolling the areas. What I didn't get was the results of the patrolling in those areas to kind of give us a sense when they are doing and when they're not doing it, and try to pinpoint the time that we had high crime in those areas. So I was on the assumption, I don't know about the other commissioners, but I thought we had already come to some type of arrangement with the legal department to get out and make sure that our residents are being kept safe. So this is something different that I'm hearing, if that's not what's going on.
Well, to respond to that, Vice Chairman Todd, we do not have a contract with the high cops, with the city of Birmingham. We're currently not under contract with the city of Birmingham high cops.
Okay.
We have an agreement with the Sheriff's Department, and that agreement was entered into by our president and CEO and the sheriff at that time. As you recall, the board did not approve that agreement, but there was an agreement that was entered into by the president, CEO, and the sheriff. So we do not have a contract with the city of Birmingham high cops at this time. Now, of course, the city provides regular patrol based on the sites being in the city of Birmingham that any citizen will receive. But above baseline services are not a part of the agreement. We don't have a contract with the city of Birmingham to provide above baseline services at this time. The Sheriff's Department has the contract to provide protective services.
So I guess that's why we're here today to
Yes, sir.
kind of figure out why we hadn't made that move on
Yes,
this.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me, Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add that when this was discussed earlier, I made the recommendation that the police department would work along with the sheriff, and they would, their duties would be similar or different. We had a problem with the high cop. We had a problem with check and balance, if I recall. The minutes should reflect that, because we at that time was not able to find the policemen in their shacks or whatever. And we were supposed to my knowledge, check that. Am I correct?
Yeah, that was one of the things that was brought up in one of our meetings. That's correct, concerning that. Now, as far as the agreement with the Sheriff's Department, that was something that was supposed to be a part of what they were supposed to be doing, as far as make sure there were checks and balances and things of that nature. And I'm quite sure that when the presentation is made, they will be talking about what kind of services they will be providing as far as the city, as far as checks and balances and measurable goals and things of that nature. So I'm sure that will be something that will be discussed by our deputy chief. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Lundy. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners, just for the record, so that we're clear, when we went into an agreement with the Jefferson County Sheriff Department, it was not without knowledge of the board. So I just want that to be clear, that there was some discussion, and I would not go into any agreement of that magnitude without my board knowing that. And I spoke with the chair at the time and got the okay and went forward. subsequent to that, we've had a number of discussions about how we move forward. And so we began to have discussions with Birmingham Police Department. And we've had various iterations of a proposal going back and forth. I think we're at a point that we're prepared to move forward. But I just want to make sure the record's clear that this president and CEO did not do anything without its chair knowing what was going on.
Well, excuse me one second, but let me rebut that. I will, for the record, this board did not vote on the contract between the Sheriff's Department and the HABD Board of Commissioners. The President and CEO entered into a contract with the Sheriff's Department without approval from the board. The record will reflect that. And so, when we went into the agreement with the Sheriff's Department, we were in a situation where I know we were in negotiations with the city. There were some issues there, and yes, I was concerned about having safety for our residents. And so I know we were looking at all different type of options to see how we could have control for our residents. Let the record show that we did not vote on that. We did not approve that. That was not ratified by this board. Okay.
Well, I just want the record to reflect that we've had numerous discussions about this. This is not the first discussion that we've had. And I do recall, Mr. Chairman, that you and Mr. Lundy had agreed upon some relationship with the Sheriff's Department, which we did not vote on, but which we acquiesced to the idea that you and Mr. Lundy had this agreement.
Mr. Lundy entered into the agreement with the Sheriff's Department. I don't act alone. We act as a board. So, I don't make decisions with Mr. Lundy. The board makes decisions. So,
There was a false impression that you and Mr. Lundy had a number of discussions for which the board was aware that you were having these discussions.
So, when Mr. Lundy entered into the contract, Mr. President CEO entered into the contract with the Sheriff's Department, I did not know about that contract until I received it. I think what happened was, I think the records show that the contract was entered into, and then Mr. Lundy brought that back to this board and told us that that's what was taking place. And we never had a vote on that. Yeah, Commissioner Jackson.
Is there a possibility that it was assumed that there was an agreement? Because I remember the discussion well, and the discussion more than once. And because we even said that the Sheriff Department would be responsible for setting people out.
Right.
And the Police Department would be responsible for touring or whatever, the site. So maybe it's an assumption.
So now, I just want to make sure we're clear. We're all aware that we entered into a contract with the Sheriff's Department. All I'm stating is that the board didn't approve it. So we're aware that the contract was entered into, and that Mr. Lundy and our attorneys entered into a MOU and an agreement with the Sheriff's Department.
But
Yeah.
has Mr. Lundy said that he assumed that it was documented in any way as to the results of the Police Department partnering with the Sheriff Department? Is that not in the minutes?
Yeah, and if you recall, at the last board meeting, there was supposed to be a report that was supposed to be given at the last board meeting as far as the report on the number of instances that took place for that given period of time. And I think Mr. Blankenship spoke and said that the sheriff was not able to make it to the meeting, and that he would provide that information to the board.
So the real issue here today is that there's no contract signed with the Police Department?
Correct. Well, yeah, so we do have an agreement signed with a temporary agreement signed with the Sheriff's Department. We're here today to discuss an agreement with the city of Birmingham. And let me say this, one of the things that information that I've gotten, one of the reasons why we're here is because I'm being told that the sheriff department has certain, so while they're patrolling our areas, there's some things, ordinances and things that they may not be able to enforce. So what's happening is they're having to call the city of Birmingham Police Department to enforce certain ordinances. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll let you speak to that, to our deputy chief. But I'm being told that the sheriff's department is having to reach out to the city of Birmingham police when there are calls of crimes and things that are taking place, that they have to call the city of Birmingham anyway. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, to make a recommendation, it's time that we need to go ahead now and listen to the Birmingham Police Department, and although the issue can be tabled and discussed at another time, but what is more pressing now is to get Birmingham involved in our community, that we can get this safe, that other issues can be discussed at a later time.
All right. Very good. All right. The floor is yours, sir. All right.
Hey, good afternoon, board.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon, Mr. Lundy, and to everybody in the audience as well. I'm going to be brief so I can yield the floor to our presenter, Mr. Davenport, on the Chief Smith's behalf as well as my behalf, around engaging the city in a contractual relationship between the city of Birmingham and HABD. What I will tell you all is that this conversation is very important to us. I am presenting myself at your board meeting on purpose. Although I cannot stay long, I wanted to come and share my intent of being here, and because this is very important. We've started engaging each other in conversation, executive to executive, leader to leader. What we wanted to do is get our team members involved, not just Chief Smith and his team, but our lawyers as well in regards to this conversation. So after presenting to you all and you all having questions for us and Deputy Chief Davenport, which I'm pretty sure he'll be able to answer any and all of them, I'm hoping and encouraged that you all can support the city of Birmingham engaging HABD above basic services. Issues we have going on around our housing authority, we're going to need some things above the basic line. And so I'm encouraged by your leadership. I want to thank Mr. Lundy for engaging us, and I look forward to this presentation to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, Board. My name is Darrell Davenport, the Deputy Chief of Police for the Birmingham Police Department. And I'm really excited about being here this afternoon. I think that Birmingham Police Department has the resources to be able to reduce the crime in the developments. First of all, we're going to do a couple of things, and the question is, why would you want to contract with us? Well, we're going to establish consistent and reliable staffing in the development. We're going to increase the emphasis of patrolling the developments, and we're going to create a long-term community safety ship partnership. See, police work is more than just showing up and driving up and down the street. It's about engaging the community in ways that they've never been engaged before. I will tell you that I've only been in your city for a short period of time. I'm actually a transplant from the Los Angeles area. And in Los Angeles, I worked primarily in the east side of one of our precincts there, and I was in charge of all the crime in the housing developments. And my experience from that was that we were able to develop those relationships that actually push down the crime. Because the reality is that the police are not going to be there when those incidents occur. We're going to be called after the incident occurred. And so when we do get there, we're going to have a responsibility, have a relationship so people will tell us what occurred. Once people tell us what occurred, we're going to be able to take proactive action to get those suspects in custody. The problem right now is that there are things that are occurring in the developments that we're unaware of that might not rise up to a level of a crime, but there are conflicts in those communities. And we need to be on the front side of those conflicts, not on the back side of the conflicts. And when I say the front side of the conflicts, if we're aware of them, then we're able to bring those parties together. We're able to use the housing residents to bring those parties together. And we can resolve conflict before conflict returns into gunfire. One of the things that we're going to deploy to the housing development, we will mandate that 1 police lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 28 officers are going to be in the development. But we're going to focus on prevention. And prevention is going to be fostering relationships that build trust. We're going to connect members of the community with wraparound services. We're going to develop a concept called Safe Passage. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but what we find is that when children are going from the development to their elementary school, to their middle school, or high school, we're finding very often that they're a victim of a robbery. And what we'll do is that through this partnership, we will identify community members that want to be a part of this Safe Passage. And basically, during the day, in the beginning of the school day, and at the end of the day, those community members that want to assist the police department, we will place them along the route that kids take to and from school. Safe Passage is not a new concept, and I'm not sure that the city of Birmingham has used this concept. But what we find very quickly is that as we place these parents along the route, our community members that want to be involved, we see a significant reduction in our aggravated assaults. We're going to see a significant reduction in our robberies and other kind of things that kids are often involved in. Additionally, we're going to be assessing. We're going to go to the developments and we're going to assess the hot spots. And I will tell you already, I've assessed some of the hot spots that lead to crime in the developments. We're going to train our officers on what we call crime prevention through environmental design. Are there trees that are causing it very difficult when the police to come into the development to see that there is a particular activity? Are there people that are hanging out at a particular spot? What's causing them to hang at that particular spot? Are there benches there? Are there other kind of things that contribute to spots being problematic? One of the things that I do daily, and within my 4 months at Birmingham Police Department, I brought what we call daily crime control meetings. And so consequently, every day, with the exception of the weekend, at 2 o'clock in the day, there's a conference call. With the exception of Wednesdays, there's an in-person meeting. I look at crime for the last 24 hours. And what I do is I inquire about each particular crime and what we're doing to resolve that crime. But part of that meeting is also predicting where the crime is going to occur, because crime kind of shows up in patterns and clusters and trends. And every week we build a map. And so I can start to see where that cluster is and I deploy those resources. Since I've been here, we've put together a citywide task force specifically to drive down crime in the city. Although we're struggling with our homicides, one homicide is too many in the city, we are starting to see significant crime reduction inside of the city of Birmingham. I will tell you that we've already developed worksheets. For example, I have one for Mark's Village housing community. And we look at our Part 1 crime on a daily basis. And then based on that crime, we're able to deploy the resources to those hotspots. So one of the things that was mentioned was accountability. I'm all in. And my expectation from my commanders that work at each precinct, the lieutenant that's going to be in charge of the housing unit, if we're able to get this contract, is that they're going to buy in. And I'm going to hold them accountable to fighting crime. The police department has a fundamental responsibility to make this community safer. That is our job. That is what we swore to do. And I'm going to hold everyone in the organization accountable for that. And that is one thing the chief brought me here, is to hold the organization accountable for crime. I will tell you that in the Birmingham Police Department, although a good agency, they did not track crime in the way that we track crime today. Things are significantly changing in the Birmingham Police Department. So we know day to day, almost hour to hour, what's going on, and we move resources. Not only do we move resources, and this is something that's never been done before, as hot spots start to occur, we'll move resources from across the city to a hot spot to prevent additional crime from occurring. When we look at enforcement, we're going to ensure that our policies are being enforced in terms of our officers abiding by those policies. We're going to provide the training, we're going to provide the supervision and the discipline to support a community safety partnership that really is an integration between the police department, the housing community, and the other stakeholders. Additionally, we're going to use strategic enforcement, and we're going to use technology. And part of that technology is that we're in the process of starting a crime center in the police department. There have been cameras and shot spotters that are put out around the development. We can basically tell you where the shooting is occurring in the developments. And because we can tell you where the shootings are occurring in the developments, we've actually been able to respond to those locations and actually make arrests. We are already in partnership with parole and probation. A few weeks ago, because of the rapid shootings in the development, we actually put a task force together. And we identified 8 locations in the developments that we were going to. I will tell you the results of that enforcement activity is that we ended up with a significant amount of drugs and guns. And so we know that we can be effective with our resources and all the technology that we're using. We're going to engage the residents. So the reality is, like I said earlier, when crime occurs, the residents are there. They know who's causing it, but often they don't have the trust in the police officers that are assigned to the developments. They won't talk to us. And I will take you back a couple of years. We all looked at Andy Griffith, and we all know the story, is that when something was occurring in that community, in Mayberry, everybody would go to Andy and tell Andy what was occurring. And Andy, at times, would get Barney, and they would go get Goomer, and they would get other people in that community to address crime problems that were occurring in that community. For example, if they had to put a posse together, surely that 2-man police department could not do it by themselves. And consequently, they had to engage the community to be able to do it. And so consequently, the Birmingham Police Department has to do the same thing. We cannot do it alone. I, as a deputy chief, will attend many of those meetings. I'm going to be the person that's ensuring that things are being done in the way that they need to be done to ensure that we're driving down crime. But not only are we driving down crime, we got to build relationships. See, police work is all about relationships, but we also have to have enforcement. We can't have all relationships and yet no enforcement. If people or if community members are engaging in illegal activity in the developments, we have to arrest those people, and we have to ensure that the city attorney or the district attorney are prosecuting those individuals, because very few people actually make the development problematic for the majority of the population. There's probably only 10% of the folks that are creating the issues. We're going to be very strategic with our enforcement. But part of that enforcement also is education. See, we need to show up more than just putting handcuffs on people. We need to establish football teams, basketball teams. We need to make sure that kids feel safe. We need to create that sense of community. And so the police department, we are committed to be a part of a partnership to be able to do it. We can't do it by ourselves, and we've never been able to do it by ourselves. But I know one thing will work. The partnerships, the collaboration will work. We're part of the National Safety Partnership, and because of the police department being a part of that partnership, there's a lot of training that we're able to bring to our police officers from outside of the jurisdiction, in terms of dealing with procedural justice, in terms of how do you build effective partnerships and cooperations. And so all these things combined, I think, will make the development safe. I look at, just a few minutes ago, I was looking at crime in the development, and as a whole, crime is somewhat down in the developments, but that doesn't matter to the person that just got robbed. That doesn't matter to the child that was shot last night and to their family members, okay? Numbers don't matter, it's how people feel. We have to create a feeling in the developments where people feel safe, and that they can go to the police department, talk to the police department, and the police department can be responsive. My commitment to this board, and when I came here to Birmingham, is to ensure that we have captains accountable, we have lieutenants accountable, sergeants, and police officers. And at the end of the day, that we're doing our job. And our job is to make this community safer. I will tell you that if we come back in a year, I will tell you that there will be a reduction in crime. I can meet with you monthly or weekly and tell you where your crime is at. and what we're doing about it to resolve those issues. I will tell you that I think that in the long run, you're going to be very happy with the service that we're going to provide the developments. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for your presentations. Vice Chairman Todd.
You know, one of the taboos in the community is word fear, where the residents are afraid to come forth. I don't think in many cases that they don't want to tell or point to persons who are committing crimes. My question would be then, what kind of system that can be set up where it would take away the fear if there was a hotline just for the development area to be able to call in about a particular incident or crime that's being committed. You understand, I see you smiling, is that we got to figure out a system. Because I don't see, you know, even me, I'm not too sure about whether or not I would just walk up and start talking to you, not knowing my next door neighbor still got a gun pointing my way.
You know, when I smiled, because just last week I created a pamphlet that we're actually going to start passing out.
Okay.
And on that pamphlet, it gives the Crime Stoppers number and it gives the number to detectives. And on that pamphlet, which we can hang on a door, it says you can be anonymous. And the reality is, we just need the information. And we don't need names of the people that provide that information. We just need the information. And so that's one way we do it. The other way we do it is through relationships. There are people, if you have that relationship, will say, hey, I'm going to give you the information. You just have to leave my name out of it. And right now, I don't think that we have those relationships built to the extent that we need them to be effective. Because there's one thing about a number that they can call, it's another thing about a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, if you have those relationships, folks will call morning, noon, and night to give you information. Because they want results. They want safe neighborhoods.
Agreed.
We all want that.
Agree. So would there be some type of engagement with the residents to explain that they would be safe? I mean, actually go and talk with them and explain how that system worked in terms of calling in and how their confidential call would be kept and no one else will know about it. I mean, some type of little workshop to help them feel a little bit more confidence about making those calls, so to speak.
Absolutely. Our thought process is that each development should be having weekly meetings, the resident boards. And part of us is sharing that information with the residents' boards and then asking the community members who are not a part of the boards or not participating in those meetings, we got to get the information out. And so it's not just the board's responsibility or the housing authority's responsibility, it's the police department's responsibility. And I think that when we put our heads together, we'll figure out what the best method is to get that information out. But I think education is needed on both parts. And we're going to be a part of that educational process.
You know, another question, I got about 3 more and I'll be finished. You know, in time past, there used to be a system for the Birmingham Police Department where they used to have an assigned police officer in the community centers where they stayed there during the duration of their shift. And they got to know people by being in the housing complex every day, 8 hours a day. I don't know if that was something to be feasible or not, but will you have a special staffing for our residents?
Yes, sir. We're going to have one lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 28 officers specifically assigned to the developments. And their job is not only to enforce the law, but to build those relationships, to provide the education, and really to bring everyone together so that at the end of the day, we end up with a safer place, a place where there is no fear. And that's our goal. And I will assure you that if we come back in the year, that your residents will tell you that they feel safer a year from now than they do today. And that's because of relationships. And that will also be because of enforcement, because if there are people that are engaging in illegal activity in those developments, we're gonna take them to jail. It's simple as that. You're not gonna be able to be in the development, pull your gun and shoot indiscriminately and think there's not gonna be any consequences for that kind of behavior. When we look at that behavior, it affects children in a very negative way. And the psychological implications of violence and growing up in that kind of environment is not conducive to any society. And so we have a responsibility to the children, to their parents, and the other people that come to the developments to visit, to all the stakeholders, to make sure that those kinds of incidents don't occur. And if you engage in those incidents, let me assure you, we're gonna be putting the handcuffs on those people.
You know, at one time, I was part of the police athletic team. That was a sports organization that was designed to bring the community together, where we played baseball and all this stuff that you were just saying a moment ago together. It had some benefits because we got a chance to know police in a different way. And then we got a chance to learn how to relate to other communities without having aggression. And you mentioned that there would be something, that possibility might begin again in terms of having an athletic program for our residents in this community. Do you still believe that that's a possibility, that we can do that kind of work together?
Absolutely, because kids need something to do when they get home from school. Community members need to see positive things occurring inside of their community, and the police need to be a part of that. If we're always seeing as the folks that come in and take everyone to jail, we're never going to build those relationships. However, if we build relationships where we're seen as helping the community, empowering the community, and having them to have a voice at the table, they feel empowered, and consequently, we will see reductions in crime because they're going to provide us with information that we need. Additionally, we're going to be there, we're going to see things, and we're going to know who the key players are in those developments. And slowly but surely and strategically, those people that are creating those kinds of problems in the developments, they won't be able to live there because we're going to have to take them and put them in another place until they, to ensure that it's safe for all the residents in the community.
Commissioner Lewis, I think you were next.
I did. One of the things, fears that the residents have is confidentiality. They don't mind telling, but in incidents in the past, resident has come forward. When they know anything, they've told the police and everybody else who said it. They don't feel comfortable doing that. So that's why a lot of times they know what's happening, but they're not willing to talk about it because their name is presented all over the place. They don't feel comfortable, they don't feel safe.
Well, and I certainly do understand that, and one of the things that we've done is that the officers that are going to be selected to work the development are going to go through a series of training specifically to address some of the issues that community members have in the development. Not only are we going to provide them training, we're going to select the best of the department to send in the developments. I hate to say to send in, but to partnership with the development. We need good cops in there, because with good cops, and I say that all our cops are good, but there's some that are better. Okay, and so when I put out the advertisement for this particular position, it wasn't an advertisement, we just need anybody to show up. We need the best and we need the brightest. Not only do we need the best and the brightest, we've created criteria under which we're evaluating those officers that we're going to assign to the development. And let me assure you, I will know all the officers that are assigned to the development. And if they're not cutting the mustard, they won't be working the development. And so if they can't build relationships, if they can't be respectful to folks, if they can't follow the policies and procedures of the Birmingham Police Department and work in collaboration with all the stakeholders, that's not where we need them in this organization. And so I don't know, I hope that you hear the passion, and I'm about business. And I'm going to assure that our officers that are there are going to be about the business, but they also have a softer side, so that we are able to engage folks in the way that they need to be engaged. So at the end of the day, we end up with a successful partnership. The chief of police expects that, the mayor of the city expects that, and by God, we're going to deliver.
Commissioner Jackson and Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. As a retired social worker, we had to take this whole meet the client where they are. And I think that's one of the problem situations where all of the children, they need to have a relationship with the schools because for one thing, we'll find out why Jana can't read. And the things that the children have to go through with at home, they bring it with them when they leave home in the morning. And as Commissioner Lewis said, that that fear that's in them, and they can't express themselves perhaps at home like they can somewhere else. Right. So I think programs of prevention would be, should increase and intervention decrease. Is that possible? Because the children, most of the crimes that you hear now, they are 16 years old or under. And when I see something on TV, I say, I guarantee he's 16. He's 16. So what do? Discard those children? Do they have to, is there a program or something that maybe can be worked out with the school that will cause their children to know that they need not fear and that things will happen and that they have, the police is not your enemy? And I think that's what it is because things are so obvious now. But I think a program in accordance with the school would be a good start, and the children can take things home with them that what they learn at school, and perhaps that will help. We can try it.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Prevention is the key. We want to catch things before they occur. And the police department is going to be part of the partnership as it relates to prevention. We're not all of it. We don't have all the answers, but there's a lot of very gifted people in the Birmingham school system. There's a lot of gifted people in the housing authority, and there's a lot of gifted community members. And if we bring all our minds together, we will find the best programs that fit each development, because what works at one development may not work at another development. And so we need to be strategic, and we need to be open-minded. And we need to throw away the thought process that we've never did it that way before. We have to be on the cutting edge. We have to move forward with energy and enthusiasm and try things that we've never tried before. And I assure you that if we do those things, we'll get the results that we need. So I would just say that prevention is important, and having those open dialogue and relationships, we can find prevention programs. One of the things that you see in the city is Peace in the Park. I don't know if any of you have attended Peace in the Park, but that concept started a few weeks ago at the police department, sitting on the 6th floor, where we brought community members in to talk about violence in the summertime and what could we do to prevent violence from occurring. And so the community members said that Legion Field on Fridays was empty and that community members needed some place to go. And so the mayor's office got on board, was a part of those conversations, and I will tell you, we now have Peace in the Park, and we're seeing some crime reduction as a result of Peace in the Park on Fridays. And so that's a conversation that might not have been had a year ago. But I will tell you, those are conversations that are being had today, because we know that we have to create opportunities for young folks, teenagers, and young adults, so that they don't engage in bad behavior. And let me tell you something that's important about Peace in the Park, and I hope that it continues to transform. Peace in the Park is just not about a Friday night. It is so much more. I will tell you that at some point my goal, or our goal in Peace in the Park, is to have talent competitions. You know why we want to have talent competitions? Because that means that a young person will gather their friends together and they're gonna perform their act. They gotta get an outfit. That means they're gonna spend 3 or 4 days at the mall looking for an outfit to be able to put on. They're gonna do a lot of things preparing for that one moment or that 2-minute performance. And it's not about that Friday, it's about all the time that it's gonna take leading up to that Friday. And all that time that it takes leading up to that Friday, that's about prevention. That's about taking them off the streets and ensuring that they're not in those bad places, that they're not having conflict with people. Not only their friends get involved, their family members get involved. And so when you have the event, the whole family comes out to support that individual. And so those kinds of concepts are the same kind of concepts we're going to be bringing to the housing communities.
On that same note, may I end with this? Inclusiveness is very important. So when you have your meetings, is everybody in the community included in those meetings, or do you have a select few, do you choose people randomly? That's important, because sometimes people that it affects are left out. They have no say-so in what they're doing, or their future, or their present, or whatever. Along those lines, I love inclusiveness. I belong to another organization where we distribute books. I asked them at the meeting, are they reading the books? Are they just picking them up because you have some books over here that's free? Read the book. I initiated a rap session to discuss the books that you read. That way you will prove to me that you're reading the books. The books are helping you. If not, if you need some help with the books, you can. But just to pass out books and you don't have a follow-up, it's like ball. Everybody want to associate our children with ball. Football, basketball, but it's all right in its place. But they need something up here because the average athlete career is over at 29. So what the child gonna do after he's 29? He can't come off on Social Security or whatever. So he gotta be prepared in another way other than a ball. So what are your plans for that? Have you given that any thought?
Yes, ma'am. Inclusiveness and diversity are extremely important. And this is what I'll tell you. One of the things that I looked at the police department, we were having a particular group of community members that were victims of robberies. And when I looked at our department, what I realized is that we did not have officers that could communicate their language. And consequently, when they were being victimized, we didn't have officers in the organization that could go out and do the outreach to bring those community members in. And I will tell you that we've changed that, because the reality is that we need Spanish speakers on the job. If we think that we're gonna solve crimes that are occurring in the Hispanic community where some members don't speak English, we have to have people that can go in there and be able to speak the language. We actually have to have sign interpreters on the job, because if we don't have sign interpreters, how do we communicate with the deaf community? And there's so many other communities out there that we have to include into the police department. And so one of the things that we're working on right now is a language card. Because there's many languages out there that we have officers that might not recognize that language, but if we're able to take a card and show them different languages, we can then quickly determine what language that we need to be able to communicate with that community member. And I will tell you, in 2021, the World Games will come here, and there's going to be people from all over the world coming here. And so, just as we recognize as a police department that we need to be able to communicate with folks that are coming to the 2021 World Games, we recognize that we need people, we need to be able to communicate with all the folks in the development. And some of those folks, quite honestly, might not even like the police, might not even want to talk to the police. But through dialogue, through even sometime breaking bread together, people who once did not like the police department find value and worth in the police department. But if you never have a dialogue with them, you can never come to an agreement of the minds. And we might not agree on everything, but I bet one thing, I think there's one thing that we all want. And that's the people that might not agree with the police department. That's the people that totally agree with the police department. Everybody wants safety. And we can agree on safety. We can agree on reducing fear. And so I'm very confident that we will reach out to the array of community members to ensure that they have a voice at the table.
Commissioner Clark and then Commissioner Levin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this has been a very smart discussion. It's been very useful, very helpful for me. And some of the things I like about what you're saying is I like both the compassion as well as the energy that goes into smart policing. But I also realize, and I hear it from you, that the action that you're going to take are going to be data driven. They're not just intuitive or not just how I feel, but they're evidence based and they have data behind them. I like that. And then I like the fact that you can use data in a rapid response. That's very important. And then I will say that I like that you exhibit a tough mindedness, which is very critical in the kind of work that we're going to have to do. And then finally, I'll say I like this idea that we're not going to, like a lot of people like to do, they like to just outsource their problem. This is not an outsourcing. I don't see this as an outsourcing of a problem. I see this as a partnership that we need to develop that needs, and quite frankly, it's going to be a lot of work to develop that partnership. And we're going to have to do our part, and it's not just us and you. It's the community at large, and I say the entire community of Birmingham to be supportive of something like this. So I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, I think it's been a very smart discussion.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Lewis?
I just wanted to say, in having your community meetings, make sure you all include your resident council. We have a very active resident council who are not included in a lot of events. They have more contact with some of the residents than, I say, the police or the other people, because they can talk to them on a different level that you may not. So in the meetings, I really would like to have the resident councils included. If the presidents can't make it, they can assign someone to attend. But they need to be included in everything that's going on in the community.
Yes, ma'am, and I will say one thing. I'm not afraid of hard work. Okay, when I signed up to be on the police department, I knew it was going to be hard work. But this is about making communities safer. And I will tell you that every police officer, when they took an interview, they didn't take that interview and say, if there's hard work, don't call me. They said, if it's hard work, call me. And my commitment is to hold them accountable to what they said in that interview. They said they would work morning, noon, and night. They didn't care about the uniform. They just wanted to serve. And so it is my responsibility as the Deputy Chief of Patrol to invigorate them, to give them the tools, the training, and the supervision to be able to do their jobs effectively. And part of doing their job effectively is building those relationships. Because many of the folks that when they took those interviews talked about how important the community was, or is. And I will tell you, I will take them back to those very interviews and talk about those theories. And my expectation is that whether it's morning, noon, or night, that they show up.
Vice Chairman Todd?
I like what Commissioner Clark just mentioned about everybody being involved. And I believe, Mr. London, that we have a policy, I believe, in place for a family to continue to be in a crime situation that they are asked to move. I'm not sure if that's a policy or not.
Absolutely it is.
Okay. So if that could be a communication, because we're not going to know all the time when our residents have been involved in a crime. If that could be a communication between Birmingham and housing, and when one of our residents have been arrested for something, that could be communicated to housing. Then housing can then move on their policy to do what they need to do to eliminate some of the situations. So if there's some communication like that, that way we'll know who we need to go ahead and say, y'all need to go ahead and move because you don't have too many contacts with the police department. And the second thing is that we have some high social workers that we have, and I don't know what their roles and what they do. And I know the deputy chief already aware of this, but youth mental illness is very prevalent in the community. A lot of mental illness is there. And we need to look at how do we categorize those, some kind of system where we can see where all this mental illness is located in our housing, and start doing some target areas to help with some of this here. You know, I can see a young man walking down between the yellow lines. One car going this way, the other going that way. They walking down there. Now you know that ain't good sense. Something wrong with that picture, you know. So we got to be able to recognize that there are some things that the police department cannot do, and some things we want to be watchful for as being another resource to kind of manage our in-house stuff to make sure that we can help cut down some of the criminal involvement. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Deputy Chief, Davenport, just want to thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
You know, we've had an opportunity to have a discussion about proposed above baseline policing services, and certainly speak for myself, staff, and we're certainly on board with moving this process forward and coming to an agreement that we all can buy into. Just listening to some of the comments, and I'm encouraged that we're all on the same page. One of the things that Commissioner Jackson mentioned is about inclusion. And so when I think about that, don't only think about law enforcement. I think you made it clear that it's not just about law enforcement. You can have a police officer on every corner, as often been said, and still not drive down the crime rate. And so having connections with the larger community, the old African American, the old African proverb, it takes a village. It really does. And I think it's very important that we continue to build on the construct of community engagement, meeting with our partners, bringing partners in, because we can't solve all the problems and we don't have all the answers. And we have part of the answers, but we're going to have the total answer. It will take a total community. And so I was just thinking about what we're doing in some of our communities, such as March Village with our Campus of Hope, which is a one-stop shop with supportive services. Those are the kind of programs and structures that we need to have in place around the city with many of our public housing communities. The other thing that I would say, and it just goes to our community, and that is, you know, one of the things that I think has been missed to some extent is the family values and going back to the structure of the family. And we must admit that we have a little bit of a challenge in our community about the family structure. And to the extent that we can begin to try to heal the family, the nucleus family. And I remember in years gone by, you know, we had this concept of extended families, where dad might not have been around, but we had uncle, or we had a granddad, or big mama, who was going to make sure that we behaved the way we were supposed to behave. And if I remember getting spankings, and when my parents weren't home, because Miss Lucille across the street made it a point to share with my mom the mischief that I was involved. And so it really did take a village to raise the community as we went forward. So I would want to see more of that. And it's not just the Birmingham Police Department, it's all of us. And it has to be a shared vision, a shared effort in making this reality. So I'm encouraged with respect to what I've heard today.
Well, I will tell you, I am encouraged. The city is committed, the police department's committed. I've met with many members of your team, and they've indicated that they also share the vision of bringing everyone to be a part of the solution. And I will tell you that there are people that we have not identified even today that we will identify that will help us to reduce the incidence of crime and the sense of fear that live in many of these developments. And part of it is just having a police department that is responsive. When you call us, we have to show up. When you call us, we have to show up not only quickly, but in a timely manner that makes you feel, the community feel, that they're safe. If it takes us 3 hours to get to a shooting, nobody feels safe and no one has confidence in the police department. And so just like we're going to show up in a timely fashion and we're going to do our job, we're going to ask our partners to do the same thing. And I'm going to assure that our organization, whether it's morning, noon, or night, we're going to show up and we're always going to do the right thing.
Mr. Chairman, something out of order. Can we, just as a board now, go ahead and move into a motion to go ahead and establish a contract relationship with the Birmingham Police Department?
So I don't think we're out of order. However, I think there are a few points that may need to be discussed in executive session, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if that's not the case, then we can, okay, all right, okay, so, okay. So if there aren't any questions or concerns, any more questions or concerns from this board, there are 2 items that we need to discuss into an executive session, contract negotiations and good name and character. So those items we will need to discuss. So if I can entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss those 2 items.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go into executive session in good name and character.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, we'll go into executive session to discuss a matter of safety and security which is permitted under the Alabama Act.
Okay, we have 2 items that we're going to be discussing. That particular item, and we also will be discussing good name and character. Is that permissible?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay,
sir.
all right, very good, very good. All right, so we had the motion. Did we get a second?
Yes.
Second, been moving proper second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, we're about to go into executive session, and we will reconvene the meeting at the call of the chair.